must be some fucking chemical.
Chemical in your brain.
That makes us different from animals.
Makes us all the same.
Take it if it makes you numb. Take it if it makes you calm. Take it if it makes you make it perfect. Take it if it makes you talk. Take it if it makes you cough. Take it if it makes you forget verses. Take it.
Take it. Take it. Take it.
Hello, welcome to Physeek Cafe. I am Sumant. We ensure we bring you the best advice from the highly qualified doctors and fitness experts. And in today's episode, we have Vinay Rayker, who's an avid cyclist and IT professional from Bangalore. He has ensured that he keeps his family also do the cycling by building his own cycle. He has clocked about 26,000 kilometers by cycling across Karnataka. He's won a lot of races and he keeps his enthusiasm going and ensuring he is a better version of himself every time. Welcome, Vinay.
Thank you.
Okay, so an obvious first question. How did you start cycling and what was your trigger for cycling?
I think especially for this question, I really want you to come into my life journey when I was enjoying my childhood. I think there was a moment where all of us were very fond of renting a bicycle by paying, let's say, 1 or 2 rupee and always cycle throughout the day. And that was also part of my life. Eventually what happened was any relatives who would typically come to my house, I never used to ask them, give me chocolates. My first request to them was always, give me 2 rupees, I want to cycle. And that's how the cycling interest built in my DNA right from the childhood. And from that point, if I remember a day, so I think when after repeated request to my dad, I got my cycle when I was studying in 8th standard. Usually it's a late in your childhood that you own a bicycle, and that was the happiest moment of my life so far. And even if I compare it to anything that has happened in my life, getting that cycle on that day was one of the happiest days so far. And fast forward, I think way back in 2014 when I was working for a sales organization for a software company, the overall pressure level were really high, and I really thought I should get into cycling because my BP was almost getting into the border, sugar was almost getting into border, and I think on that day, I think somewhere April 2014 is when I got my first cycle and thought I should ride regularly to keep at least myself fit and be very active in life. That's a bit of a history of why and how cycling has started in my life.
So that's a very good trigger or background on how people would cycle. I think that's a takeaway for a lot of people, Vinay. So that's a very good start. And how do you define a cycling enthusiast? Do you call him a cyclist or do you call him a biker? How is it referred?
It differs. So if you look at a generic cycling community, so that's when everybody looks at other cyclists as cyclists. But if you get into, let's say, narrowed down of professional cyclists, so all of them are typically called as bikers.
So let's say, Vinay, if someone is interested in cycling, so how does he pursue it? How does he get started?
So there are usually 3 categories of cycles. So something called as mountain bike, road bike, and we also have something called as a hybrid bike. For somebody who's starting new, I would always recommend look at a hybrid bike, which is a mix of both mountain bike and road bike. And once he gets into cycling, let's say if he rides that cycle for at least a couple of months, he would get to know whether he would typically fit into a mountain biking category, or if he's really a fast biker, he can also get into road bike.
So, do we typically need a huge investment to start cycling? Because that is something that many people would be interested to know.
True, true. Not really. See, I started my cycling journey way back in 2014 with investment of just $4,000, and I rode that cycle for almost 2 years, clocking close to around 6,500 kilometers. Simple bike, no gears, nothing. And after that point, I realized that this is something that I can really be passionate about, and start to build a bigger investment in that one. And that's the time when I moved to a better bike. So for somebody who really wants to start cycling, you really don't need a huge investment. Just let's say under 10,000 for you to get ready with cycle, and some safety gadgets are typically good enough.
Nice. So now that we know what is the investment needed, so how do you research a good bicycle? So what are the parameters that you look for in a good cycle to start with?
So as I said, it's always good to look at hybrid bike, and once you decide on a bike, there are multiple factors that are involved. So the cycle frame is a very critical thing, and that depends on your height. So I've seen many a cyclist having a very low saddle or a very high saddle, and they eventually get a lot of, let's say, hand pain, back pain, leg pain, knee pain, mostly because the height is not made for them. And based on your height, there are a lot of websites that tells you, okay, which cycle that which length that you should typically go for. So do that maths a bit before you buy a cycle. And most of the websites, including Firefox or let's say Decathlon or high-end bikes as well, they have simple parameters for you to determine, let's say, which size bike that you need for starting a cycling journey. So I think that's how I would recommend: buy a cycle which is of size that suits you, rather than buying a cycle which in a random fashion.
That was a very nice advice, Vinay. And how do you, what time of the day do you do a cycling? Is there any specific recommendation that you have, morning, evenings, nights?
Most of the cyclists would go out early in the morning, let's say between 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. Somebody who does longer rides, they can typically do it for 2 hours, but somebody who's starting and really want to do a quick ride of, let's say, 10, 15, 20, 25 kilometer, 6 a.m. is a good time, because that's the time when you really don't see much of the traffic on the road, and good air as well for you to go out and enjoy the nature. Early in the morning, 6 to 8 is always the right time.
And you talked about safety gear also earlier. So what safety precautions should one take? Apart from the safety gear, what other considerations that a person riding a cycle should be keeping in mind?
With all the metro city traffic, and I always see a lot of tankers, let's say water tankers, coming in the opposite direction, auto guys coming in the opposite direction. It's very critical that we have minimal safety gears for us to be safely riding on the road. I strongly recommend the first and very critical important thing is helmet. I don't even recommend anybody who's going on the road on cycle without having an helmet. So helmet is very, very critical. Once that part is taken care, always have a rear LED light which is blinking, so that somebody who's coming from behind will know that there is a cyclist who is going forward, and that's an indication, so that he at least gives some way for you to ride on the road. And with tankers and all of these auto guys coming from the opposite direction, it's always good to have a blinking light in the front as well, so that way you're covered from all the directions. And if you go on highways for long distance, there are specific t-shirts which have got sort of a radium reflection. It's good to have those kind of t-shirts which has got reflection for people to know that there is somebody who is on the bike or who is on the cycle that we need to be extremely careful about.
Okay. Very valid points. Typically, how do you plan a week of cycling? Are there any days that you take it easy, or you cycle throughout the week, or is it more on weekends? So what is the regular schedule that you follow?
There was a time where I used to ride almost every day in the week, but later then I realized that your body also needs a bit of a rest. So my usual cycling week is, let's say, 5 to 6 days in a week cycling, of covering at least 50 kilometers in each ride. Usually on Saturday or Sunday, I tend to do 100 kilometer. And one day that I typically give my body rest is usually on Monday. So that's how you calm your body and make sure the muscles are getting relaxed, and you get ready for, let's say, Tuesday onwards for again a round of cycling. That's all this.
Okay. So as you cycle, what are the parameters or the indicators that you need to consider to know that you are improving in cycling? So how do you keep a tab on that?
Very interesting question. See, somebody who wants to get into professional cycling, there are two key factors. One is, are you in a position to cover longer distance? Let's say today I started my cycling, I'm covering 20 kilometers. So tomorrow, am I in a position to cover, let's say, 25 kilometers or 30 kilometers? That's one parameter. Somebody who is willing to spend time and get into endurance cycling. So it's all about covering longer distances. So day by day, let's say if you start with 20 kilometers, make sure you cover 25 next day or next week, or 30 a week later. In a month's time, so you should be in a position to start at least 50 kilometer ride. The other aspect of a professional cycling is speed. Let's say today you're clocking a 15 km per hour speed. So are you in a position to improve that speed to go beyond, let's say, 15 km per hour and hit maybe 16 or 17 or 18? So when you focus on speed, every kilometer of speed increase is going to be a huge effort, for which you need to train your body, have good enough techniques to clock your speed to reach the maximum levels.
So now that you have talked about how do you progressively improve your endurance to ride more distance, so what is the nutrition advice that you have? Do you have any specific advice?
Lot of professional cyclists they take a lot of protein supplements and other supplements, but my philosophy is live with whatever that you eat on a daily basis. Because once you start taking supplements, and if you focus on, let's say, long-term cycling career, and suddenly, let's say, if you have an injury and leave cycling for, let's say, 6 months to 1 year, so that may have very adverse impact on the body. So for somebody who is into short term, especially the youngsters who really want to win, let's say, national champions or state champions, so they need to perform between, let's say, 18 to 20 years or 18 to 22 years. For them, it makes sense to take supplements because they need to perform on the day to win that medal for the state or nationals, right? For somebody, especially the higher age guys, especially 35 plus. So what we can do is we can live with whatever food that we eat at home rather than taking an external supplement. So that way our body gets tuned with the food that we eat and also get into cycling as well.
Okay, that's a smart advice. I think that is helpful for a lot of people who have a dilemma on what to eat, what not to eat. So yeah, that
and an important point, right? So because when you go on long rides or fast rides, you tend to lose a lot of salts in your body, and what I usually do is, once I finish my ride, I usually get 1 glass of lemonade, homemade lemonade with good enough salt and sugar, so that at least the lost salts in your body is getting recovered. It takes a day for you to recover all that salt, but that's a nice advice for you to get some additional salts once you finish off your ride, rather than taking an external supplement or any other nutrition.
And as you cycle, there are a lot of cycle clubs that are there. So how does one get associated with such a cycle club, and what are the benefits of being associated with that?
It's going to be an amazing learning. See, if you ride alone, you don't know what is best in cycling. You always learn when you ride with other fellow cyclists on the road. So that's why somebody who's starting new, I highly recommend get into specific clubs, and if you see any cyclist on the road, talk to them and ask them to get yourself added into the WhatsApp group that they typically are part of. And I also got added to quite a few groups in Mangalore and also in Bangalore as well. I tend to meet a lot of cyclists on the road. So once you start riding with the group, you will know cycling techniques. Let's say what should be the cadence, how should you position yourself on the cycle, rather than, let's say, riding on a free mode, right? So those are all advices which typically comes in when you ride with fellow cyclists from other groups or other clubs as well. And there are a lot more easier ways. So one is, let's say if you meet any cyclist on the road, ask them if you can get yourself added to the WhatsApp group, or on the Facebook or Instagram there are umpteen number of groups, including the Track and Trail is a famous cycling brand in Bangalore. They have their own group as well. Bumps on Saddle is again a famous cycling group. They arrange a lot of weekend rides.
So when you talk about cycling, people tend to compare it with running also. So are there any benefits of cycling that are exclusive as compared to running?
It is. I really want to take a quote that one of my senior cyclists talked about. His name is Shyam Prasad. He said, if you compare cycling with, let's say, you covering a journey in a car or a bike, he said it's kind of a slow motion movie. If you zip through a small waterfall or a river stream in a car or in a bike, as compared to what you see that in a cycle, it's kind of a slow motion movie that you engage yourself to be a lot more associated with the nature, and that's how you tend to enjoy all the nature that's around you, right? And that's one part. And with the cycling as compared to running, you tend to cover a lot more distance. You get to a place which are not explored. In my last 9 months of cycling ride in Bangalore, especially in the area where I live in Koramangala, Sarjapur side, we as a family have discovered close to around 9 different lakes. And once I finish ride, I look at the map and see if there are any lakes around or any water bodies that we can go and spend some time there, right? So that's a major advantage. So you tend to go cover a lot more places, explore places. And the extreme benefit of cycling is, as compared to running, your legs will not get a lot of strain. Unlike running, where it may have huge impact. So legs are a lot more easy. You pedal and you're not putting a lot more weight on your leg. So cyclists who tend to do cycling will eventually do cycling for longer term, as compared to runners who will typically take a look at running for maybe 5 or 10 years. So that's a big advantage. So covering nature, slow motion, plus an advantage of yourself fit and not having huge weight on your leg is a big advantage. Yeah.
Okay, that's a nice step. And you talked about the legs. So the legs are important part of the cycling, right? And how do you keep your leg fit? So do you recommend any exercises, any routine that will help?
It is. If you want to focus on professional cycling, your legs have to be very strong. It's all about putting your upper body a lot more thinner, and the lower body build a lot of muscle. So that way it becomes extremely stronger for you to ride both on the endurance side and also on the speed as well. So I recommend specific exercises. If you have, let's say, leg push in your gyms, so that can be tried out. If you do squats, that's also pretty good. Do squats with weights as well. So eventually you build a good strength on your legs as well.
You've talked about the benefits of cycling, but are there any side effects of cycling?
Not really. I would say positive effects. So positive effects. Your heart tend to become a lot more stronger, good pumping, and you can maintain good average with a heart rate that is under control. I would say very strong positive effects than any negative effects.
So how do you manage the changes in the climatic conditions when you ride? It can be very sunny, it can be very rainy or very cold. So how do you manage the changes in the climatic conditions?
See, once you get into cycling and once you experience some of these moments, maybe heavy rain or very humid climatic condition, you will get used to it. Maybe first time when you ride with a very humid temperature, you may really falter or may not really want to do a long ride. But second time onwards, you'll get used to it. It's all about your body getting accustomed to that kind of a climate. It's good to ride across all climatic conditions. So I've ridden in extreme rain, I've ridden in extreme humid condition, and sometime I think last year, a group of 13 cyclists from Bangalore, we had gone to Bhutan. We covered whole of Bhutan by cycle for almost 10 days, covering 970 kilometers. Extremely cold temperature. I think as and when you ride more like this, your body will also get used to it.
And we've talked a lot about cycling. Do you do any other activity other than cycling?
I do. Off late, I realized it's always good to cross train yourself in case if you're focusing on a speed, a good performance bicycle. I started working out in gym at least 1 or 2 days in a week, and starting this year I also got into a bit of running as well. In my weekly schedule, I cover 4 days of cycling and 2 days of running, so of at least 10 kilometers in each run. This is what I have built, especially to take both my kids along with me. This is Siddhant. Why don't you say hi, Siddhant?
Hi.
And that's Vedant. And Siddhant, I still consider him as a baby, even though he's 5.5 years, because he fits in well for this baby seat. And Vedant helps me in pedaling to give me additional power. And this is usually for a baby. Even if Siddhant feels like sleeping, he can just sleep like this, not a problem. And Vedant can actually get on that cycle and help me in pedal. So let's take a ride and get into a nice place to explore some nature spots here. All the way from Kormangla to this wonderful lake here called Muttanallur, and this is our usual weekend ride that we do most of the time. Let's go explore how this wonderful nature is and how kids can enjoy being part of this nature. Do you like cycling?
Yeah,
Why do you like cycling?
because I love to spend time with my parents.
That's why you do cycling?
Yeah,
Okay. Do you want to do cycle alone or with family?
family.
And where do you want to go?
To a beautiful place.
Like this?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Hey, hi Vedant. Do you like cycling?
Yeah.
What is your most favorite thing in cycling?
I like to look at the nature around me, and I like to spend time with my family when I'm riding the cycle.
Very nice. Do you like your brother's company in cycling?
Yeah.
Do you feel angry when he's sitting as a relaxed person and you're only pedaling?
Yeah, a bit angry.
You're angry or
Yeah.
happy?
Angry.
Okay.
Angry?
So we've touched about family cycling in the beginning. So we've heard a lot about what you do as a family cycling. Why don't you tell us a bit about it?
Oh, it's an interesting thing that we're all part of, including me, 2 of my kids, and my wife as well. What I realized is once you get into cycling as a hobby or a passion, you will usually spend a lot of time cycling around, even on Sundays, Saturdays, or any other day, and you leave your kids at home and you're missing them because you're cycling somewhere. And what I realized is we somehow need to get family also into cycling. So I built a small tandem bicycle where I have a baby seat in the front, and I put my younger one who is 5-year-old into that baby seat, and elder one who is 9-year-old pedals with me in the tandem. So that way 3 of us can go on really long rides, and my wife also usually joins in weekend rides as well. So that way all of us are together and covering a lot of distances and cycling together. Our usual time was every Sunday. We used to take our tandem cycle and my wife on her cycle, go on breakfast ride, cover let's say 20-30 kilometers, have a breakfast, or go to Lalabag or Kaban Park, spend some time there and come back. So the family time really gets very attaching with that.
Beautiful. And what made you to build such a cycle? You said you built it on your own. So what made you build a cycle like that?
Yeah, as I said, right, the initial idea was when I used to take my when I used to take my cycle on long rides, when we had only one kid way back in I think 2014-15 time frame. My wife was always getting angry because you're going out for 3-4 hours and I need to take care of my kid, right? Then when I went to US, I saw a dad taking his son in a small baby seat in a cycle. So I realized, yeah, why not I buy that. I got that baby seat and fixed it on my cycle, and I used to take my kid along whenever my wife wanted, let's say, relaxing time. So I said, okay, I'll take the kid along and go on really long rides. So, and when my second one was born, so I started taking him in that baby seat right when he was, let's say, 9 months old. And a lot of people really used to tell me, okay, why are you taking that small kid on the road? It's really risky. But I think the joy that he had on the cycle, looking at various places, birds, trucks, and all the vehicles on the road, so I could not stop that joy. So we continued that journey. And when my elder one grew up, so my younger one took that baby seat and he came in the front. And my elder one, I really had to find something so that he also comes along with me for cycling. So that's the time when I saw a tandem in Australia. So I got the tandem and fixed it to my cycle. So that way nobody is left home. All of us are together cycling with the kids. And the big joyous moment is when you cycle along, the kind of conversation that you have. See, you can't let kids stay at home and do something for 2 hours. But in this cycle, they are with you for 2-3 hours without any cribbing. So they enjoy that kind of a ride, that kind of a family time, that kind of a conversation that you have, which I think nobody, nowhere else you can get that kind of a feeling or experience.
And you've talked about your kids. You take them along with your rides, right? And has that passion rubbed onto them? Has it had a positive effect on them? What is the effect?
It is. And as I was chatting with you in the morning, my younger one started riding when he was 3.5 years old. I would say many kids do that, but based on what I have seen, 3.5 is very early for somebody to start cycling without any balance wheels. So I think once they get into you doing cycling regularly, it also becomes their passion as well. My elder one is extremely into cycling. He also wants a road bike for himself for next birthday. He can ride on his own bicycle for at least 25-30 kilometers. So there are rides where we have done together, not on the tandem, as a separate cycle, where my elder one came along with me and covered this 25-30 kilometer distance. It's all about inculcating that habit right from beginning, that fitness is critical, and they get inspired by this and also make it a hobby for themselves.
Super. And given the situation, a popular question, right? So how has this COVID situation impacted your cycling?
It has. Initially, when the lockdown started, because every Sunday I used to reserve this time for family cycling. There are times where we couldn't go anywhere because the lockdown measures were really strict. But later on, once it started opening up, so we were able to explore and again go on rides. But the only issue that I have experienced is, so we always used to keep Sunday for breakfast. Now with COVID, we really somehow avoid eating outside, or let's say carry food from home, go to a place and settle down there and have breakfast and come back. An additional effort, but I think that's something that you need to adjust in case if you want to do this as a main thing.
Okay. Okay, and you talked about a lot of cycling in Bangalore and many other cities. So how easy it is to practice cycle in a metro city, and if you have any advice that you want to share?
It's because of the traffic, it is not that easy if you are looking at cycling in the city. But most of the cities, let's say once you cross 8-10 kilometers, you will always have an area which is of lesser population, lesser traffic. Again, in my case, if I go on Sarjapur side, just 8 kilometers further down, once I cross, let's say Decathlon, the area is a lot more calm, not many vehicles that are running around. And once you take right and get into, let's say, countrysides, it's very fun. You get into nature and enjoy all of that. So though you may have a tough time in the beginning for, let's say, 8-10 kilometers, after that it's going to be an extremely joyous ride for you.
Okay. And in the beginning we talked about what prompted you to do cycling. Now you've been cycling for last 6 years. So what has changed in your life because of cycling?
I think the aggressive nature that I had early in my career has actually come down. I'm a lot more calmer now as compared to what I was way back in 2014-15 time frame. I think all of that has really mellowed me down as a person to look at what is important in life rather than just making money or, let's say, an important career. There are other important things in life. The family time, getting your body fit is extremely critical. That's one part of it from the family side. From the health perspective, as I said, I was almost into a BP border and sugar border, and it's all normal now.
Okay, that's a very good benefit. And is there any tracks that are your favorite around the city or any other place that you want to recommend? We have a lot of enthusiasts wanting to hear about the favorite tracks.
There are multiple tracks. Wherever you live in, I strongly recommend look at the map, explore places, and there is nobody stopping you riding on the road. I have explored a lot of places around Sarjapur side, HSR layout, and we've also done a lot of rides towards Nandi Hills as well. Nandi Hills has been a very, very popular track for many cyclists in Bangalore because that's one of the most hilly area which gives you utmost elevation for cyclists.
We have an interesting round called the rapid fire round, and I'm sure a lot of our folks who are enrolled to Physeek Fit would want to also hear about it. So I'll ask you questions, and I would want you to think very quickly and answer, and whatever comes to your mind, answer it fast. So that's the rule of the game of rapid fire.
Sure.
Okay. Which is your favorite cycling track?
As I said, Nandi Hills.
What was your most memorable ride on your bike?
The trip that I had in Bhutan was one of the most memorable.
Okay. Which is your favorite bike?
I currently have a Scott bike, but if my wife permits, I will upgrade into a Pinarello, which is an expensive bike. Let's see when that happens.
Okay. Which is one place in the world you want to cycle in where you have not cycled yet?
I think Europe is an amazing place for you to cycle. Given a chance, I really want to do a family cycling in Europe. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have a cycling role model whom you want to meet and chat for an hour about cycling?
My brother-in-law who lives in Bangalore, he has clocked close to around 90,000 kilometers on cycle, and he started almost at the same time when I started my cycling. So whenever I go to Bangalore, I make sure I do at least a couple of rides with him, have a long chat, learn some techniques. That's been a great conversation with him.
Okay. And what has been your personal best?
My personal best, I have clocked 100 kilometers at a speed of around 32-33 kilometers per hour, and I really want to improve further and, let's say, put a next goal which I can achieve.
Okay, so that's exactly the next question. What is your goal, next goal?
Next goal, as I said, right, if you consider speed, increasing speed by every kilometer is going to be a Herculean task. I want to clock, let's say, 100 kilometers at a speed of 35 kilometers per hour, probably in next 1 year. That's been my goal as well.
Okay. And what is your personal ambition? Like, do you want to participate in Tour de France or any cycling event like that?
See, operationally it becomes very tough. What I really want to get into is get into long endurance cycling races in India, and also participate in various races that are done in Bangalore. So that's, I think, on the cards. With the COVID, I somehow avoided this year, but next year it's definitely on the cards.
Okay. And if it was not cycling, what would be a similar passion you would have taken up?
Maybe running. And I realized that of late, only this year, maybe running marathon running as well.
Okay. And finally, if you would want to gift your bike to somebody, who would that person be?
Maybe my dad. So I have seen him riding and going to various villages when he was in early, let's say, 30s or 40s. Now he's gone ahead with completely scooter. I really want to look at gifting him a bike which is suitable for him, comfortable for him, so that he can get back on the saddle and start riding.
Okay, it was very wonderful, Vinay, talking to you, and thanks a lot for sharing so much views about cycling and your experience, your life, about your family and everything. So I'm sure the viewers of Physeek Fit, just like me, who are fitness and sports enthusiasts, would have had a very good time listening to this talk. I myself enjoyed spending this last few minutes with Vinay, and with that I would like to thank you, Vinay, for spending your valuable time with us.
Wonderful, thank you, and it was really great conversation with you, Sumant. So hopefully we get to see more cycling enthusiasts on the road, and we get to see more people riding on the road, including of all categories, not just adults, right? So small kids and elder people also.
Okay, thank you, Vinay.
Thank you.
So as a token of remembering this day and this interview and moment from Physeek Fit, we would like to give you a small token of appreciation. It's a t-shirt, and hope you can wear it in your rides and find it useful.
Thank you so much. Thank you, appreciate it.